It's the same way with the code assistants, is that if you become overly dependent on any technology, it, I think, actually works against you. It creates a dependency. It starts to cripple you. It prevents you, I think, from achieving all the greatness that you might achieve otherwise. Hey everybody, welcome back to Goju Tech Talk. So today I woke up and saw this article. And I was so inspired by this, I felt like I needed to just quickly hop online and record something for all of you. So let's take a quick look at this. I think you can probably tell from the title where this is going, and what I want to talk about is more than just, obviously, but rather kind of like a strategy on how all of us as developers can eliminate the noise and focus more on the signal and make sure that we're not going to get burned by these types of things. I think the higher order bit for me is, as many of you know, we've talked about this numerous times, the land, expand, and demand, and we sort of knew that this was coming. It's obvious, right? The economics of this don't make sense when you're using large language models, and I don't even know if I would fault, well, a little bit I would fault them, but they're a company, they're trying to make money. I don't necessarily agree with the strategy, because I do think it is very clearly a bait and switch, but mostly I'm concerned about all the developers. So the big AI companies that are kind of doing this nonsense, I don't agree with this. And I want to help all the developers figure out how to navigate this, specifically those people who are trying to use AI to accelerate their workflow, but they don't know enough about AI and how it's built to get in front of these types of things, right? For those of you on GTT that are experts in AI, and I know there's many of you out there, this is not surprising, and this is why you guys, as well as me, we don't really use these coding assistants. I mean, there's many reasons, but a big reason is we know that the bait and switch is coming, and so it's arrived, and we don't want to rely on something that's going to basically cost us tens of thousands of dollars or more per year. But I want to be super clear about something. Using language models is not the only way to do AI. In fact, a big reason why we built the Merly AI technology the way that we did is to avoid these types of things. That when we were originally forming the company, there was a lot of discussion about using things like transformers, and a big reason why I steered the company in a direction away from that was, one, their stochastic systems, which I think are not that useful in the hard science space. But more importantly, when you start working at the scale of large language models where you have billions or trillions of hyperparameters, the computational cost is essentially the bottleneck. That even if you can make it work, someone has to pay the power bill, and ultimately that's going to be the people that are using these systems. So before we dive into this, I want to share that there are ways to do AI that don't require language models, and Merly system is one of those. So if you are an open source developer, download Mentor today and let us know that you're open source, and we'll basically give you an unlimited license to work on open source projects. Now, if you're doing stuff commercially, like, let's be fair here, that there needs to be some sort of bartering going on. But if you're principally living in the open source space, working on things like in LF or Apache or whatever, Mentor is there for you for free. And the reason why we can do this is our systems don't use language models at the foundation. It's AI that we built from scratch that is massively optimized, so we can give it away essentially at a really low price or for free for open source folks without any kind of bait and switch. I mean, essentially Mentor can run almost entirely on your own personal machine, so the overhead for us is minimal. There are corner cases where we'll make calls into language models for various sort of high-level code solutions, but even in those cases, those can be mitigated by intelligent ways that you're storing historical data and prior code snippets that you've seen, that you have solutions toward, that don't require you to make a call into a cloud system that's going to cost you thousands of dollars to give you back 3 lines of code. So I guess what I'm saying is, don't lose faith. There are AI solutions that are out there, and we're starting now to look at helping other AI systems level themselves up in terms of their fidelity while also reducing their prices. Now, I want to be clear, I'm not super keen on making deals with the devil, and so there are certain systems that we're probably not going to work with, not because they don't want to work with us, but because, I don't know, ethics matter to me, and they really do. Just being totally honest, when you do things that are sort of very misguided, but they're an accident, I think it's okay. But if they're very misguided, but it's intentional, it's very different, right? It's like you're trying to do this bait and switch. For example, these guys here, they all know. This isn't a surprise to any of them what they're doing, and that the prices that they're setting for the developers don't economically match in terms of feasibility for their business model. So they know that they must increase their prices, which is what they're doing to keep their business alive. But they don't start with that price because they're trying to do what we've discussed before, which is the land, expand, and then demand. Once they've got you locked, it's kind of like, I hate to use this analogy, but I'll use it anyway. It's like drug dealers. The first one's always free, right? Why? They want to get you hooked. They want to get you addicted. And that's why the prices come in so low initially, is they get you hooked on this to where you rely on it. And this is especially effective, unfortunately, for junior developers. That's probably the pill that's the hardest for me to swallow, which makes me very hesitant to work with folks like this. Just actually as a humorous aside, I won't mention the name, but one of these folks, or on the top list, reached out to us recently and asked for me to sponsor their system with some nice monetary reward, and I declined. And part of the reason why I declined is what we're talking about here. Is at the heart of it, what really matters to me is the technology, and I'm not really that motivated by money. And part of the reason why I created Merly is I wasn't able to get the type of technological adoption and development that I wanted to when I was at Intel. I actually really loved my experience being in the labs It was great. I'm pretty sad about the way that things are going for Intel right now. I really hope that they can figure things out. But needless to say, the ethical part really matters to me, which is part of the reason why I declined to do a sponsored video series on these things, because I just don't think I could do this, right? Knowing that this type of stuff is going on, and the just the lack of a strong moral compass. It's like anything for a buck. It just doesn't. This does not sit well with me. And there's ways to do this that I think are ethical, where you can be open about what it's actually going to cost, and then people aren't surprised. But doing this is a very mercenary tactic. So I'll put a link to this video or this article in the video, and all of you can read it. But the higher order bit, I think, is for those of you that are using the code assistants today, you may want to rethink this. You may want to consider another path forward, because what is happening now, this is not anomalous. Again, if you look at some of the prior videos and you understand things like Dennard scaling and the power wall that we've hit, there's essentially no way forward right now to essentially get inference from large language models at a cost that's anywhere remotely reasonable for an average user. So what you fundamentally need is a disruptive technology, a technology that is not a large language model, that can provide value for folks with 1/1,000,000th of the computational overhead. And again, it can be done. It just requires a lot of work. It requires a serious level of mastery in like the 4 domains that we've talked about for machine programming. You really need to be an expert in machine learning, software engineering, programming languages, and systems, all at the same time, to build an AI system that has value in terms of the things that it can do from a learned perspective. That's the ML side. You need to have strong competency in programming languages, so you can understand how to essentially distill out the important semantic information from a lot of the syntactic overhead that is essentially non-essential for the actual code that you're trying to reason about. That's the second piece for programming languages. The third, with software engineering, you need to understand what actually matters with software engineering. What are the actual real problems versus someone that's on the outside that doesn't deeply understand software engineering, which unfortunately is a lot of these folks that, if you look at the founding teams for many of these systems, minimally at least for Cursor and Anthropic, while I'm sure they're wonderful people, they aren't necessarily the Linus Torvalds of the world, or the John Carmacks, or the Jonathan Blows, where they deeply understand software engineering, so they understand what is hard for software developers, and then to help them make those things easier. I think, as Linus Torvalds pointed out, software developers can write really bad code all on their own. They don't need AI assistance for that, but they really could use help with AI systems identifying those issues and mitigating them. And that's principally why, that's one of the core reasons why we built Mentor, is for me, having developed software for a very long time and having written a lot of code, I still write bugs constantly. And so having a system that's going to help me massage the code to level it up is something that I'll probably never not need. But actually writing code, that's once you start getting into I don't know, the motion of it. I think many of us software developers, that's not necessarily the main struggle that we have. Also, I think that the dependency there is really handicapping people. I think it's creating a disability in people that is preventing them from being able to elevate to levels that they could achieve otherwise. For example, imagine if rather than learning a foreign language, you just had this interpretation device that you spoke into and then it translated. What would probably happen in those cases, you would just become dependent on this thing for all the translations. And maybe that's okay if all you care about is just very minor conversations. But now imagine that you want to have fluid conversations with people and this device is not around. Well, there's no way to move forward, essentially. You're married to this device now. It's the same way with the code assistants, is that if you become overly dependent on any technology, it, I think, actually works against you. It creates a dependency. It starts to cripple you. It prevents you, I think, from achieving all the greatness that you might achieve otherwise. So on top of that, I think that just leaning away from these code assistants as you get past the basics is a really good thing. So for all of you mid-level engineers or senior-level engineers, I strongly encourage you to really not use them, with the exception of maybe just ramping very quickly on new programming languages or getting a breakdown of how maybe to design something, but not necessarily using them as a mechanism to write the code for you, for the very reason that we just described, is that very quickly what I think you're going to find is that you no longer can write code. And in my mind, that's like no longer being able to speak. I don't want to live in that world. On top of that, with the way that many of these systems exist today, like the ones that we're looking at, the price scaling is this is not a one-off, and I think we've already seen that this is not a one-off, that these price increases have happened numerous times. So the higher order bit, I guess, and I'm just going to keep this short, is download Mentor and use it for free if you're doing open source stuff, and it'll be great. If you are using these systems, I would strongly encourage you to find a way to start to minimize that. If you can, there's other systems that maybe aren't as good, but they can give you like the free version, and it can sort of wean you off of this. But if you aren't using these types of AI coding assistants today, I strongly recommend that you don't start, because I think that you're likely doing yourself a serious disservice, not only in your wallet and the amount of money that you're going to be losing constantly. The other part, very seriously, is it's going to inhibit you from learning. You're going to become dependent on this thing, and it's been my experience that as long as you're committed, just like spoken language, you can learn these things, right? Like I would make the strong argument that if you can speak in a natural language and you can write in a natural language, then you can write code, right? Like you can write code. It'll just take some time, but you'll be able to get there. So that's basically all that I have to say on this one. It is an unfortunate thing that it's happening, but my hope is many of the Vegeters, as we've discussed many times, we knew this was coming, and I hope you guys have weaned yourself off of it. And if you're new to the channel, take a look at this, maybe watch some of the old videos on how the economics don't make sense. Maybe I'll drop a link to some of those so you can see those. But I'm glad people are finally calling this out. It's unfortunate that it's taken some time, because this actually has been going on I think, since OpenAI started to do their PhD thing, where it was like $20,000 a month. And those of us that have been working in the space of AI, we've known for some time that the economics just don't make sense. So we're seeing it live now, and yeah, like one of the parts that I saw that's just a little bit crazy is the starting price of $100 a month. By the way, I think that's what Mentor is for doing full analysis of a repository, a full repository, right? Not just like helping you with a small snippet of code. And that's like fixed for a single user. There are cases where there are upcharges, but it's very clear, like in the pricing. It's just if you're making too many references into the language model. But the pricing is not something that changes. It's very straightforward. And on top of that, the reason why we can charge significantly less for Mentor is that the fundamental AI technology is like 6 orders of magnitude more efficient than language models. So it doesn't cost us nearly as much. So it's still profitable. It's still effective at a much more reasonable price. So anyway, $100 a month to $20 to $30 a day without changing the way that they're using Cursor. Yeah. So that's basically $100 every 3 days. That's, yeah, over an order of magnitude, I think, more expensive than what they're originally proposing. So 30 times 30, yeah. So it's almost an order of magnitude more than the $100 a month. That's not a 10%. It's not like a Netflix or Apple TV or a Peacock price hike where it's 10-15% more. That's like a 10x jump. That's mercenary. That is, I think, really unethical. And I like, apologies, whatever. I mean, look, those of us that know AI, and these guys know AI, this is not a surprise. This isn't like, well, we didn't know. Oh my gosh, it's just, we didn't really understand how this works, and now we're surprised. So it's not a good look. And I hope all of you are not deeply affected by this, but let this be maybe the nudge that maybe some of you need to wean yourself off of these code assistants. This is especially true if you're a junior developer. I think, like, again, this is it's like the difference. Let me give you another analogy. I've seen many people that still don't know how to type. They have to look at the keyboard. And it's not that they can't learn how to type. We all can learn how to touch type. It's that they haven't forced themselves to become disciplined enough to do the right thing. So they will level themselves up. They have become dependent on the letters that are printed on the keyboard because it's just easier. Like, ultimately, no BS here. It's just lazy. It's easier. It's lazy. It's not the hard path, and ultimately, it's the people that are using this that are suffering the most. So, do yourself a favor. If you're a junior developer, don't buy into the hype. Listen to the voice of reason. If you don't believe me, check out Eli, the computer guy. I've been watching him lately. I'll drop a link to his stuff. He's phenomenal. He's also very experienced in this space, and he's like, if you think that I'm calling this out, he's really going to town. I absolutely love this guy, and very seasoned person, and he's really just saying what needs to actually be said. Just as a humorous aside, I I was looking at Google's AI on Goju Tech Talk because I'm just trying to figure out if it's figured out what GTT is. And it came up with this really awesome write-up about how I'm this this outspoken critic of AI. And it just warmed my heart because many of the things that it was talking about, I think, is actually how I feel. I'm a huge advocate for AI and technology, obviously. Otherwise, why do I have a PhD in computer engineering? Why do I run a tech company? And why do I teach at like the graduate level of computer science? I love this stuff, but I don't like hype. I don't like when people lie. I don't like when people play games, especially for people that are not initiated, that they don't know any better, right? I feel like you're taking advantage of people's ignorance, and that's really dishonest. It's not a good thing to do. And as I've said many times before, and I learned from other people, people are gullible, but they're not dumb. And so you may be able to pull a quick one on them, like has happened here, momentarily, but eventually people will get wise to this. And for these companies that are doing this, once trust has been burned and lost, I think as someone once said, it takes a lifetime to build integrity and trust. It takes one moment to lose it all. So, Cursor, Anthropic, Replit, I think maybe you guys have had your moment.